Sandboard. Good evening, sir. Are you here? Okay, good afternoon, sir. I think you can hear me now.
Yes.
Okay, can we see your face?
Okay, I should start video or what?
Yes.
Okay. What am I not doing right?
We can actually see you, but there is the window behind you, the light coming in is reflecting.
Yeah, so how is it now?
I think is quite better. than before.
Okay, I think I can see myself up there.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
I can change the position.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's better now.
Okay.
Okay, we have to go. A very warm good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you once again to Inside the Arena. This is the 22nd edition of our monthly program, Inside the Arena. And today, we have inside the arena a very distinguished engineer and Nigerian who has traversed the length and breadth of engineering profession, especially in the oil and gas industry, and has left an impressive impression in the annals of engineering history. It's our pleasure to welcome Engineer Dr. Audu-Ohwavborua. I hope I get it very well.
No, you didn't
Emmanuel.
get it right.
But you will say it right when you introduce yourself.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. You are welcome inside the arena. And before we start the program, let me also welcome our participants who have joined us today for this beautiful program. All the participants, we want to welcome you for this edition of Inside the Arena. Now we have to go. Before we start, we have to mention the ground rules again. We have the first segment of this program is what we call the direct free kick segment, where we are going to direct all the questions to you, the guest, and you will respond to the questions. After that, we move to the corner kick segment, where the participants will be allowed to also make contributions by asking questions. But we have a little caveat to that. If we consider any question thrown to you by the participants as inappropriate or has gone beyond the bounds of propriety, we are going to flag our card and you'll be exempted from answering the question. Okay. And then finally, we are going to go to the extra time segment, and that is when the participants we have opportunity to win prizes. Questions will be asked about you to the participants, and the first 3 participants to give the correct answers are going to go home with beautiful prizes. Today we have 3 beautiful prizes, 3 smart phones that are going to be won today. We are expecting delivery of the phones. Once they come, we are going to be displaying it here. And 3 of our participants, the phones are on the way, and the delivery guy is coming. But once it comes here, we are going to be showing but they are very high-tech phones, Samsung, Techno, and Infinix. We are going to be showing them today, and 3 lucky winners are going to be going home with these phones. Once again, I welcome you to Inside the Arena. Please, sir, in a nutshell, can you introduce yourself? Give us a little background about you, your education, your family background. We take it off from there.
Well, Engineer Ben, Ossie, thank you so much for having me on this program. I've had the opportunity of listening in some of the past programs, and I must commend the branch effort for this sensitization. My name is Engineer Dr. Emmanuel Audu-Ohwavborua. I'm going to say that again. It is like a sentence, but it is actually not. Okay. Once more, my name is Engineer Dr. Emmanuel Audu-Ohwavborua.
Okay.
Literally, what it means is Ohwavborua. Ohwavborua.
Wow.
Okay.
I will get that today.
Okay, but For purpose of this interview, we can stop at Engineer Emmanuel Audu.
Audu.
That sounds quite easy.
Okay, sir.
Okay, I was born 8th of July, 1965 at a hospital we now call Eku Baptist Hospital in Etiop East local government area of Delta State. I am from Delta because my parents both come from Delta. I was born a few years before the war, for the Nigerian Civil War. And I was born in that town, Eku. Eku right now is in Etiop East local government area of Delta State. And after the war, we moved to Sapele. Now, just indulge everyone by just explaining a little story as I was told. My father was a trader. He used to take things from the south, west from the south to the north. That was before the Civil War. And then those, the massacre of the second coup, the massacre that took place before the second coup in 1966, caught up with him there. I was born just a year before then. And then the news came that he had died alongside so many other people that they killed during the massacre. And then, of course, for the period the Civil War lasted, nobody heard from him. He was mourned that he had died. But then one Saturday morning after the war, 1970, an Army Land Rover drove into our compound, and the man came out of the Army Land Rover. Wow. And then my siblings that were wise enough ran away from him, you know, that he was a ghost. But then he started calling them that he was not a ghost, and so they came back, and as the story went, he said the massacre actually caught up with him, but because he was wearing a tasbih, these chaplets that the Muslims used to count for prayer, they call it tasbih. It's a chaplet. He had it around his neck, and so those people who were killing people then saw that he was a Muslim, and they saved him. They protected him. And then he was not very literate, so he believed the religion saved him. And so when he came back, he now made all of us to be Muslims. Okay, and then as at that time, there was no mosque in Eku. There was mosque in Sapele, which was not too far from Eku. And so he moved his family to Eku, who were about a family of 10, my father, 2 wives, and 10 children. I was the youngest of those children. Okay, so of course, the man later on married another woman and then got some other children after me. And so I actually started attending primary school in Sapele. I attended the then Nigerian Baptist Convention Primary School. And I left primary school and I went to secondary school. I did common entrance in 1975. And I was given admission to attend Federal Government College, Warri. But then it also required that I had to be in the hostel. My father said there was no money for me to go to the hostel. And so I had to go to Audu-Ohwavborua Grammar School that was in Sapele as a day student. And then, of course, I finished. And I got admission to University of Ibadan. Then, 1980, when I finished secondary school. I also could not go to the university because of still this no fun thing. But long story short, I eventually went to the university in 1986. The first admission was for me to study civil engineering. But the second one in 1986 was for me to study electrical engineering. And so, but before then, I also did the OND at Federal Polytechnic, Mubi, who were pioneers of Federal Polytechnic, Yola. And the name became, they later on moved the school to Mubi. And I studied OND. I got OND there in instrumentation and control by 1983. And then by 1986, I went to UI, University of Ibadan. And I left University of Ibadan in 1991 with a degree in electrical engineering. So I will stop there for now, and I'll leave you to take the next question.
All right, what inspired you to study engineering, particularly electrical engineering, and not civil, as you mentioned?
Okay. I think it is very important I make this point. When I did JAMB the first time, it was my elder brother, he's late now, who filled the JAMB form, because then I was just in Form 5. And he actually filled medicine for first choice, and then civil engineering second choice. I didn't make those choices. And when I took that JAMB, the admission that was offered to me was in civil engineering. Okay, now, but when I filled my JAMB form to go to university, my first choice was electrical engineering. The second choice was electrical engineering. My first choice university was University of Ibadan. My second choice university was University of Ibadan. When we were doing physics in class 3, when we started doing the Hooke's law, and we started doing, I contrasted the Hooke's law and elasticity in mechanics. And I wanted to know what it is that made a bulb to actually light. I wanted to know how you could touch a live wire and you will receive shock. I wanted to know so many things, why you enter a moving lift and the lift takes you to a higher level. So those things were intriguing to me, and I wanted to know more about engineering. And that is why I chose electrical engineering. Because
now, after bagging a BSc in electrical engineering in 1991, yeah, you also went further to acquire some other degrees. Share that to us and tell us why. But these were not engineering.
Okay, yeah, okay. I did youth service in Ondo State. I actually wanted to work in Shell. I had planned in my mind that when I graduate, I was going to work in Shell Warri or Shell Port Harcourt. And I actually went, when I finished, I went to Port Harcourt to try to get Shell to give me a letter for youth service, but they said no, that if I'm posted to River State, then of course that may happen. But as luck will have it, I wasn't posted to River State. I did everything I could, but I was posted to Ondo State to serve. So I taught while I served, and after service, I got my first job in 1993, January, at a company called Socotec Nigeria Limited. As at that time, it was one of the biggest power companies in Nigeria. And it had branches all over Nigeria. And I worked there for a short while, gained some experience. And I was employed in Lagos and posted to Delta State to be a site engineer in a construction site in Kwale. And then I eventually got another job with NETCO, National Engineering and Technical Company. Now, why I'm saying this, because it will explain why I had to change my line of. So I got a job with NETCO as an instrument engineer, a design instrument engineer. I worked in NETCO for almost 4 years. before I went to the UK and worked in Grand Hand Limited, and then came back. When I came back in Lagos, I actually enrolled in Unilag to study Masters in Power Engineering. And I did classes for about just a month, and I got a job in Port Harcourt with Body Allied Industries, makers of rock cement. That was in 1998. And then I had to stop the school, the master's program. And then when I got to Port Harcourt, as I settled down, I also got another admission in UST to also study the same power engineering at master's level. And then we had the first class I attended in UST. Every practical thing the lecturer was talking about, I already knew in my mind. I had encountered them while I was working in Netco. And while I was in final year in the university, I did a course called engineering management. Under that engineering management, we studied law, we studied some part of business and all of that. And I felt pulled towards management, not necessarily business, but management as a course. And so after class one evening, I was talking to a lady. The lady was studying business administration. And she shared some insights with me about how eventually, if you are a good manager, you can actually get an engineer to do that difficult part, but it is easier to be an entrepreneur with management than being an engineer. So that pulled me, and eventually I decided to enroll for a master's program in business administration. Okay, so I did that while I was working in, after I joined the NDDC. I did it on part-time, but I had to do a postgraduate diploma first. And I did it for 1 year in UNICA, University of Calabar. And then after that, I enrolled for the MBA program, and I also studied and got that degree. But I was growing in my engineering practice because I was attending courses, I was doing going into different branches of engineering as my work dictated. So I was growing in engineering, and since I was growing in knowledge in business management.
Okay, let me ask you, why I want to ask you this question was that you mentioned earlier that you had your first admission, you could not go in because there was non-availability of funds until you had to wait to get the second admission. What inspires you? When you had that initial challenge, did it in any way affect you psychologically, or did it inspire you to, motivate, spur you to, increase your tempo towards actualizing what you want to be in life?
Okay, you see, my life is it's a story. I'll put this in a book. We'll get to that. Okay, when when people use the language, I come from humble beginning. Okay, that is putting it very mildly. When after my father returned from the north after the war and all of that, things were not all right. Okay, it was tough. And there were 4 boys, 3 boys ahead of me. In fact, my father had 6 girls and then 4 boys from 2 women. And then later on, 2 boys and a girl. So it was when we got to Sapele, we were all living inside one room. It was challenging. And I had to even go to afternoon school to be able to help and assist my aunt that we're living with. It was tough. And so when I went through secondary school. I was day student all through. My classmates who are listening in will tell you this. I don't want to blow my trumpet, okay? It was just the fact that I was doing well in school. But when it was compulsory for me to go to the hostel in Form 5, I went to the hostel. But the boarding house fees for 3 terms, I couldn't pay. The 3rd term, I had to be chased out of the school by the principal. And I ran from the school in Sapele to the market, and my aunt said there was no money, but managed to give me transport fare to go to the village to meet my mother that had been separated from my father for a very long time, since I was a little boy, a baby. And I stayed 2 weeks in the village to be able to, for my mom to be able to raise the money. Because I told her that if I don't have the 3 terms fees, I was not going back. We had to farm cassava, convert to gari, take to market to sell. And at the end of the day, it wasn't still enough. She had to now borrow money from her meeting, which is now what we call cooperative, for me to go back. And then I was able to finish, do the WAEC, and I passed, got aggregate 18. And when I couldn't go to that university, I had it in my mind that I kept seeing a vision when I was in Form 3, Class 3, that I was seeing myself in a mighty office, well-dressed, and something kept telling me that the only way I could get to that dream was to go to school. So I actually left out, while I was in UI, my first year, I was shuttling between Sapele, where I was working in NEPA, and Ibadan. I would do 2 weeks, come back to work, to be able to collect salary for about 6 months. But it got to a point, NEPA had to terminate my appointment because I was consistently absent from work. Okay? But I held on to that dream that for me to become somebody in life, I must have this education. And when I was in 2nd and 3rd year in UI, and my classmates who were in UI with me would attest to this, I used to leave the school in Ibadan, go to Lagos. There is this area they call Costain now in Lagos. Now that area was named Costain because there was a company called Costain West Africa that had a contract to build those high-rise buildings. I was going there, and then because most of the job we were doing there was also manual, you would carry blocks from one floor to the next floor, to the next floor, to the next floor. I was doing those jobs. And so, but there was in 3rd year, I wanted to drop out of the school. But that vision that I started seeing in Form 3, I asked myself, if you drop out, how can you get to that point? So the reason I'm making this point is to maybe just encourage some listeners. I felt education was the key. That if I couldn't complete this education, it was going to be tough. I've experienced toughness while growing up. And if I wanted to be somebody, I needed to have this education. So when I took that jam, I told myself that no matter what, you will go to this university. And I focused on it, and I passed the jam, and I went to the university, even though I didn't have anybody in mind, except my brother, who just left university that time. And then he had to do youth service, and after youth service, 2 years, he didn't get a job. And the 3rd year, he got a teaching appointment at Federal College, FEDSAS, Federal School of Arts and Science, Ogoja. And then in my 4th year, I started having things a little easy because he was now sending me feeding money and all of that. And I was able to do my projects and able to finish.
Wow. Wow, that's very interesting. Who is your role model in life?
Well, my late brother is one of them. His name is Chief Blessing Audu-Ohwavborua. He studied at Greek in UNN, and he was a lawyer as well. It's one of my role models. Then another one is Steve Jobs, late Steve Jobs. Both role models happen to have passed on, but their memory continued to linger in my mind.
You have been involved in so many engineering projects.
Yes.
Which of them can you specifically say was the best of them, the one that whenever you look at or remember that we are part of this project, you can, smile and say, thank God I studied engineering and thank God I practiced engineering in Nigeria?
Okay. You see, for me, engineering is a way of life. You see, I am engineer inside out. My life depicts engineering because even what I say, I plan before I say it. And engineering is planning. You see, I worked 3 key projects I've been involved in, have helped to shape me the way I am. The very first of them is a project we call the Belema Gas Injection Project. Belema Gas Injection Project, the design of it was handled by a company I worked for in Lagos. Hello, are you there?
I'm with you.
Aha. I worked between when I left NETCO in 1996 December, I joined a design company called B.A. Shoyode and Co. in Lagos. It's a design company. And the company and a company in England, Grandhand, jointly bidded for the design of the Belema Gas Injection Project in Shell. It was a Shell project. And they won, and 6 of us, Nigerian engineers here in Lagos then, moved to England to work side by side with the engineers from Grandhand to design this project. It's about gas injection. It's an injection project. And that project is standing today in Nigeria, operational. And I anchored the engineer. I led the team of Nigerian engineers in that project. I was the materials and electrical engineering team lead for that project. And it opened my eyes. In fact, as at the time we were using computer to design, when I came back from England, we would do a whole design, simulate it, and so that exposed me to engineering, the concepts, front-end engineering, detailed engineering. And you see, I have worked as a design engineer, and I've also worked as a construction engineer. Design engineering is the heart of engineering. That is where the real engineering is done. That project shaped me. And then
now you have talked about it, but there's one area I discovered you are very passionate about. And I want you to tell us why you are so passionate about agriculture and what took you into agriculture.
Before I speak about agriculture is a passion. I'll come to it. Okay, but I have also been involved in the transmission line project in from Omotosho is a 50-kilometer transmission line from Omotosho to Okitipupa in Ondo State. Okay, and of course with the injection substation and all of that. I was involved for the design of that project and also the construction. And as I speak today, that project is an NDDC project valued at almost 6 billion. That project is completed today. And that project will be able to give light, power to the southern senatorial district of Ondo State. I feel so grateful to God for being part of that project. And I believe very soon, NDDC is planning to commission that project, bring the president to commission that project. That is the second project. And of course, the third project is the Ogbe-Nembe Road project that NDDC has done in Bayelsa State in collaboration with Shell. That project cuts across 14 communities that would never have seen road if not for that project. The project is about 27-kilometer road right in the swamp, right in the heart of the Niger Delta that runs from Ogbia to Nembe. Now, there is a road going on now by the Bayelsa State government from Nembe to Brass. So these three projects also helps me to appreciate what engineering does to the ecosystem. You see, that's why I told you that inside out I'm an engineer. Engineering is what makes us to live the way God actually plans for us to live. So that is my passion for engineering. Now, the second part of your question is, I'm passionate about agriculture. Why am I passionate about agriculture? I'm passionate about agriculture because it came to me as a revelation. You see, when you ask me who are my role models, I told you first, my late senior brother, Chief Blessing Audu-Ohwavborua. He was an agriculturist. He was actually a soil scientist. In 2012, I had a dream. And in the dream, an old man took me and my brother, who were together. He called us, he beckoned on us, and took us to an elevated ground and showed us a field. It was a plain. And it was so green, it was luscious. And he told us, he was speaking to both of us, and he said, go and walk that place. Just go there and cultivate it. Reminiscent of the Bible where God was telling Adam, walk, cultivate this garden. And so when I woke up from that dream, I phoned him and told him that I would come that weekend to discuss with him. And then of course he was in politics, okay? And I told him that God has given me a revelation for him that he should go into agriculture. He had already started farming, but small scale. He said, really? Okay, fine. But you see, politicians, they are first of all politicians, okay? And then he said when money comes, he will go into agriculture. Of course, money came, but when I saw the man was already addressing his supporters and all of that. And then, unfortunately, the man died in 2013, November 2013. We buried him in December. This pressure and stress were too much for me. And I became ill, and I went to Dubai to look after myself. I was in Dubai for 2 weeks. A day for me to return to Nigeria, that same dream I had in 2012, I had the dream again. This time my brother had died. It was in January 2014. And then it occurred to me that God was showing me that revelation. And when I got to Nigeria, I registered my farm company. And then that was in 2014. And then I started acquiring small lands in the village. You know, I was just, they were quite cheap, you know? So I was just buying. When I get money, I buy. Almost 2 years, I kept buying the lands, securing them. And 2016, I was transferred out of Port Harcourt, where I worked as director in the EDP's office. I was transferred to Ondo State to be the director of Ondo State. And I found out that I had a lot of time because I would go to work 4 days, 5 days in a week, and the weekend was mine. But where I was coming from in Port Harcourt, I was working Saturday, Sunday. And so those free time I now had, I started cultivating my farm. I got a consultant to give me a study on different poultry farming, crop farming, fish farming. And I started with poultry, started with 2,000 birds. And the inspiration I got was, on Saturdays when I would be at the farm, they would pick the eggs. Then we're doing about 50 to 100 crates daily. And while they were picking the eggs, the customers will be waiting. Then when they finish picking the eggs, you will see them struggle. I wanted 20 crates. Why are you giving me only 10? Then they will come and complain to me. Okay, I told them that I needed 30 crates. They only gave me 10. They only gave me 20. So, and you got to me. So if I can produce 200 crates, they will buy it. And so I kept expanding. Okay, and that 2,000 beds in 2016, today we have the farm in Sapele as well as in Abraka, and we have over 100,000 beds right now.
Wow.
And we have also gone into crop farming, into fish farming, and all those. Right now, we're manufacturing, because right now we started producing egg powder. We're converting eggs to powder. And we're also producing gari from cassava. We start from the farm, we have cassava farms, then we have the processing plants to convert the gari, the cassava to gari. So farming for me is passion. Engineering for me is a way of life. My skills in engineering, I apply them in the farming. You know, what differentiates the engineer from the scientist is cost. The engineer considers cost in the design that he makes. And then the engineer plans his work all the way. So I take that training into the farming that I'm doing. And I thank God for being an engineer.
Wow, 100,000 beds. That's
well, but still counting. We are not there yet.
still counting. That's great. How many people do you have in your employment?
Well, about 250.
Wow.
250.
Wow. That's a word. That's a word in the.
But we have farms like Obasanjo farms that have close to 1,000 people living there.
Wow, that's massive, and I think that's commendable. Now let's go to, because you've talked engineering, we are coming to, you are a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers.
Yeah.
You had your membership in 1996.
Yes.
And your fellowship
from Lagos.
And your fellowship in 2014.
Yes.
What inspired you to join the society, or who introduced you to the Nigerian Society of Engineers?
Okay. You know, I said I worked in NETCO from 1993 all the way to 1996 or 97, early 97. And NETCO is National Engineering and Technical Company. NETCO, as at that time, was a joint venture between Bechtel Limited of the United States and NNPC of Nigeria. NETCO was formed to provide an engineering background to all NNPC operations. And we have, in fact, 80% of NETCO, people who were in NETCO then were all engineers, both foreigners and locals. And we were encouraged to build our engineering life. And like I told you, I had always been fascinated with the power of engineering. That is why I went to study electrical engineering. I wanted to know the force behind objects moving. And so I had two bosses I want to mention. Then, Engineer B. Eaton. And there was this Dr. Udo. They were actually quite an inspiration for me then. And so when I worked in NETCO, as I've done 1996, joining in Nigerian Society of Engineers, it's not like it is now. You will face a panel. I'm sure you know Engineer Shomolu. Engineer
Yes.
Shomolu was the head of the three-man panel that interviewed me to become an engineer. You know, so I became an engineer. I mean, I registered with the body in 1996. After we had to submit a report, and the report was reviewed, and then we were invited for the interview. And then you will go and after that, they will communicate to you whether you passed or not. That was how I joined. And I joined from Lagos. Engineer Shomolu was. And Engineer Shomolu himself, as at that time, his name was everywhere. He was an inspiration. And so when I got to that interview and I saw that he was the one to interview me, then I told myself, if I'm able to pass this interview, then I will become a very good engineer. Okay? and so I succeeded. Quite a lot of us in NETCO then were all very young boys, but a lot of us were assimilated into the engineering society. And I'm very thankful that I joined that society. And then,
wow, that's okay.
Speaking about being fellow, you see, in NDDC, I've not spoken about NDDC. I hope
I'm
give me time
there.
to speak about NDDC. Okay. I worked as I was employed in NDDC in 2002 as project principal manager in project monitoring directorate. And I was there, became deputy. And when I was deputy director, I was now moved from project monitoring to the office of the executive director projects. And as at that time, Engineer Folorunsho was the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. And people like them, Engineer Dennis Daniel.
Engineer Audu-Ohwavborua.
Audu-Ohwavborua, yes.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, you know, fine engineer, fine leader. Okay, I must give kudos to him. Now, when I worked in the office of the executive director of projects, we felt I had a meeting with the executive director, who also is an engineer. He's also a fellow. Engineer Toyo Omashuli was my boss then. And I told him in that meeting that your office is the number one engineering office in NDDC. And this is the time for us to reach out to our compatriots in the engineering profession. And we came up with this plan. All those small ticket projects that NDDC was doing, let's give the design, the consultancy to members of NSE. Okay, and so we had a meeting, we sent for and had a meeting with Engineer Audu-Ohwavborua. He came to Port Harcourt. And Engineer Dennis Daniel was with him then. He was also, I think, I was a secretary or something. He was an official of the body then.
He was an ESCO member.
ESCO member, yes. And so we had this meeting and we told them that this is what we want to do. We want our engineers, we want to empower our engineers. And because we believe rather than just do these projects without engineering designs, it will bringing design to them, will bring value to it. And then of course, we also empower the engineers. And so we went to town with it. And it didn't cost us any extra because we now rearranged the bill and provided some funds from the bill to take care of the consultancy. And so a lot of engineers benefited from that experience, from that innovation. And we had, I think that was the period the fellowship also came, because it was a very remarkable effort at building the engineering profession, because it cut across people like them, Engineer Fine Ogolo. Yeah. They are still consultants to the NDDC today. Okay, they came in through that initiative. So many engineers, okay, and the system continues to run today because most of the NDDC consultants are from the Nigerian Society of Engineers.
Wow, that's a very good one. Then we take you now to NDDC in full. Yes. You have been in NDDC for many years and you got to the peak of your career. And you also was in charge as the acting managing director at a time. Can you share your experience in NDDC briefly, and also as the acting managing director also?
Okay. The NDDC is Niger Delta Development Commission. And for clarity, it came into existence with the act that was passed by the Parliament, the National Assembly, in the year 2000, during the Obasanjo regime. And NDDC, that same act repealed the UNPADEC, Oil Minerals Producing Development Commission. And so NDDC came into being in 2000. And as at this time, I was working as project manager in rock cement at One. And then one morning I saw an advert, I opened the newspapers and I saw NDDC hiring. And of course I applied, I responded. And it was Deloitte and Touch that conducted that interview. We did that interview in 2001. And by 2002, I got a phone call to come to NDDC, that I was successful in that interview. I had forgotten that I did the interview because it has taken such a long time. But of course, long story short, I was employed as a principal manager in 2002. And I grew to become director in that commission. Now, the NDDC's mandate is to orchestrate development in the region, which also is a lot of people misconceive it. They believe NDDC was established to develop the Niger Delta region. The Niger Delta region is a 75,000 square kilometer area. NDDC alone cannot develop it. So NDDC was supposed to serve as a pivot, as a fulcrum, you know, if you like, and orchestrate the development of the region. And since inception, that is what NDDC has been doing. You know, the NDDC started by taking on the UNPADEC projects that were not completed and completed them. They call those projects quick impact. So between 2001 and 2003, 2004, NDDC did not award projects of its own, but they were completing those projects that UNPADEC did. And most of them were projects that touched the lives of the people. Okay, this is a very good opportunity for me to, you know, the NDDC story has been told, but one-sided. when you mention NDDC, what comes to people's mind? Oh, man, the corruption and all of that. Okay, but the truth is, Chimamanda said that there is a danger in a stereotype story, a single side story. We must hear both sides. The NDDC now came up with a plan in 2004, which they call the Niger Delta Regional Development Plan. And that plan was done by a consortium of consultants. And it actually put into perspective the first 15 years, the areas, the different sectors, the cost, and what processes would happen, a holistic plan. However, the plan took cognizance of other development partners like the state governments, the local governments, even the river basin development authorities, the international oil companies, even the local oil companies, and even service companies. They were all to work together to bring about that plan development. And if that plan had been followed, they would have been referring to the Niger Delta region as a developed region. That is the truth. The plan envisaged that in this period, almost, I think, $50 billion would have been spent as at that time exchange rate. Okay? Wow. So, and that 15 years actually expired by last year, 2022. Okay, so now, but the NDDC, yes, we cannot say the region is now a prosperous place right now. It's not. It's still a work in progress. But the region, as at that time I joined NDDC, was a squalor. Because I was a project monitoring engineer, I was crisscrossing the entire 9 states. And we were going on canoes and kayaks. Okay, but today, there is some signs of development. But the plan was not implemented as planned, because as time went on, the state governments no longer believed in the plan. The local government, of course, they will say they don't have control of their own funds. And of course, the river basin were practically non-existent. Then partnerships we tried to do with the oil companies. Only one crystallized, majorly, the Audu-Ohwavborua Road with Shell. But then the contribution that the oil companies were making, they paid lip service to them. They were not faithful to those payments, because in the first place, the law prescribes that 3% of their budget should be paid to entities. But most times we will not know their budget till the year have passed. So they were paying those monies, but they were not faithful in it. Even the federal government that was meant to pay 15% of the derivation, that also was not coming as prescribed by the law. So NDDC, with what they had, was able to impact the lives of the people. However, when you go to the cities to look for NDDC projects, they are there, but major part of NDDC projects are in the interior. They are in the inner communities. They are in the brass areas of this world. They are in the Okulekbo and so many places that people ordinarily don't know. But NDDC is impacting the lives of those people there. So I sojourned in NDDC up till now, and I contributed my own role to the development process. We've made sacrifices. We've we've implemented projects by day, by night, when it is raining, when it is not raining, and all whatnot. But By 20, I've served in NDDC in various capacities. I became a director in 2015. And I served as director, project monitoring and supervision. I also served as director on those states. I served as director in the EDP's office. I served as director of Bayelsa State. I've served as director Edo State, director Akwa, director Delta. And then sometime in 2022, October, I was called to Abuja and I was given a letter to act as MD. It was a brief period of 2 months.
Now let me ask you. You know, when we play football, they say eye on the ball, and you should always not lose focus. You should keep your eye on the ball. Now, coming to NDDC, is like NDDC is a ball that all the governors within the Niger Delta region don't want to lose focus on. All of them, they are putting the eye on the ball. And when you come to Abuja here, all the guys in the National Assembly, their eyes are on NDDC. So they want to be in the committee on NDDC. They want to be part of what is going on in the NDDC. How has NDDC been able to cope with all these too many eyes on the activities of NDDC? Because almost all the time NDDC is
in the news.
In the news. So how have you been able to manage this and to handle all these? I know there will be so many undue interferences from both the governors, both the executive and both the legislature. How have you been able to cope with this or manage this?
I will speak to the facts that I know, especially within my own period. I don't want to speculate, but the truth is, I've stayed in NDDC long enough to know that the NDDC is the most pressured organization in the whole of Nigeria. Now, if you look at the background story, why NDDC had to come, you are not from the Niger Delta, but people from the Niger Delta will appreciate this. You see, the Niger Delta is the area that produces the oil. And the effect of the exploration of the oil has actually affected the lives of the people because their livelihood were taken off. If the pollution would destroy not only the sea, not only the water, but even the land, even farmlands, they cannot yield the way they should yield. So over the years, the people there was so much agitation. There was the 1.5%, there was some PADEC, serious Willis Commission, serious several interventions that the government came up with. The final story was the NDDC. Now, the NDDC, we give kudos to the Obasanjo administration because one of the ills of PADEC was that PADEC had projects that it didn't have funds to pay for. The funding was not enough. And so in the NDDC Act, they made provision for the federal government to pay to NDDC certain percentage, it's stipulated in the law, 15% of the derivation. And then the oil companies were also mandated to pay 3% of their entire budget, yearly budget to NDDC. Of course, the ecological fund, NDDC was supposed to get 50% of the ecological fund as well. But the problem was how the law was there, but the law also did not stipulate any penalty. Okay, so for instance, a company like NLNG refused to pay outrightly until 2018, after NDDC had gone to court with them and all of that. So the point is this: why the pressure? The pressure comes as a result of interest. You see, the Niger Delta was almost emasculated, and then this NEDC came. So, you see, in the Niger Delta, there is something we call entitlement mentality. I spoke about this largely in my book. You see, every person in the Niger Delta comes to NDDC and expects to get something back. For instance, I'll give you a typical example. It's not, the pressure is not coming only from the politicians. Of course, all politicians from the Niger Delta, they all pressurize NDDC. It's understandable. But even the chiefs, the rulers, the traditional, everyone, if we are to award a project if you were a chief in Niger Delta in your community, you will want to nominate the contractor who does the project. So pressure, NDDC is under pressure, but it was established to run as an institution. So this combination of this pressure and interest, is twofold. Of course, at times it works well, but most times it doesn't work too well for the NDDC. So it affects the NDDC, and that is why it is always in the news. Because if you do something and maybe you follow due process and a stakeholder at the end of the day doesn't benefit from it, it criticizes you. Now, but the NDDC doesn't operate in isolation. NDDC's operation, they're also guided by the Procurement Act. And then when you follow the Procurement Act, for instance, your local chief comes and picks up a tender form, and then his company doesn't have PENCOM, it doesn't have NSITF, and then at the end of the day, it is knocked off. He goes to town. He does, and then by the time you award that contract to a company that is competent, for instance, that company still has to go and pay homage to that community for it to be able to do the job. And then there is also the fact that the terrain itself, the Niger Delta terrain, is the most difficult terrain in Nigeria, if not the whole world, to execute engineering contracts or projects, to build things. You are a civil engineer. To build a road in the Niger Delta, in some areas, the unsuitable material you will remove go as deep as 4 meters, 5 meters, 6 meters. Okay? And it's also an area that has the highest rainfall in the land. Okay? Maybe the construction season in a year is no more than 3-4 months. So a whole lot of things militate against the projects that we do. But in spite of all of that, the Commission strives to live to its mandate, which is also another matter, because the mandate is so wide. Any person, anything you can think of that can be done in the Niger Delta, you write, it is in line with the mandate. So the metric for measurement is wide, and then the NDDC spreads itself so thin. But the truth is, political pressure impacts us. Pressure from all other stakeholders impact us. But we live with it, and we manage within those ambits to get the job done.
All right, thank you very much, sir. For those who are still joining us, who are just joining us, we are inside the arena, and our guest today, this is the 22nd edition, and I can cite the very man that was inside the arena for the very first edition is also one of the participants today, and that is the immediate past president of Koren, Engineer Ali Rabiu. He was the first person to come inside the arena.
Wow.
And we have Engineer Emmanuel Audu, who is our guest inside the arena. We are winding up this segment. And finally, not quite finally, you've shared so many things about your life experience. And I want you to also share with us In the book, Things Fall Apart, there was a time and a season when Okonkwo planted so many seed beds. They had these setback because of the rainfall that came that season and swept everything away.
Yes.
And he said to himself, he later survived it, but he said that if he could survive this, he can survive anything.
Yes.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you passed through turbulence and you looked back and said, if I could survive this, I can survive anything?
Thank you very much for this question. My life is a testimony. Like I told you, at a very early age, when I left secondary school, my desire was to go to university, and I couldn't go. That was a major setback for me. If not that God gave me that vision in Form 3, perhaps today I will not be speaking to you, because it took me 6 years to be able to go to university after secondary school. That was a setback, but that vision helped me. And then also when I was in the university, I suffered too much lack, a lot of lack. And it was not easy to be studying engineering and be going off school to do manual job. And then in my working life in NDDC, when I was employed in 2002, I had a very promising job in the private sector. I was earmarked to be the next general manager of Rock Cement. Okay, and then I left that and I went to NDDC. And for 8 years, I was not promoted. Not just me, every one of us that entered that period. For only God knows why. And in this period of 8 years, no promotion, I won 2 awards, Managing Director's Award, the most astounding staff of my directorate, 2 times. So it got to a point where I felt, did I make a mistake coming to the public sector? Perhaps I should have just remained in Rock Cement. As a matter of fact, I must share this story. When I was given letter of appointment in NDDC, I started the job. The letter of appointment came about 2 months later. When I saw my emoluments, I actually stopped. I went back to Rock Cement. It was this my same late brother that came all the way from Sapele to Port Harcourt to convince me to go back to NDDC. I said, no, I cannot cope. Look at the salary. As at the time I was working in Rock Cement in 2002, my basic without the commission that I was getting from the sale of cement was over 350,000 naira as at 2002. But my salary as a principal manager total in NDDC then was about 80,000 naira a month. So, but my brother convinced me that, look, one day you become a director, you'll be able to help us, you'll be able to help people, your community, you'll be able to bring development, you know, that working for government is the best thing. It was my role model, so eventually I listened to him. And I thank God I did, because he taught me selflessness, that I should not put myself first, but I should put the communities that I will be able to touch in the course of my work, working in NDDC. And by the grace of God, that has happened, and it is still happening, and by the grace of God, shall continue to happen. So those were three, you know, there are quite a few other ones, but those ones really touched me, you know, it made me to go back and think, well, and then in all of this, I've always believed in God. I've always tried to do things right in the eyes of God. And that's why, for instance, even when I'm alone, I watch what I do. And that has guided me a lot. I've had series of setbacks in life, but I've never allowed any one of them to sink me. And today I'm thankful that I was able to surmount those shortcomings. Eventually, we were promoted after 8 years in NDDC. And when the promotion came, it was backdated to when it ought to be. And that's another good thing in government, you know. So at the end of the day, we didn't lose anything, even though they didn't pay financial benefits, but at least your date was, you know, so those were in the short, those are just those three. I limited to those three.
Okay, all right. Let me ask you finally. You have mentioned quite you've mentioned before about a book you have written. I want you to share, to tell us about that book.
Okay.
And what inspired you to write it?
Yes. You need to read the book. The book is titled Real Enemies of the Niger Delta. Real Enemies of the Niger Delta. And the book actually put in perspective the Niger Delta as a region in Nigeria. First, the book talks about me, the background that led to me being in a position to be able to write that book. So it tells my story. Okay, the story I told you about my father coming back from the dead is in the book. Okay, so I actually started the book telling that story. Now, the book talks about the beleaguered nature of the Niger Delta people, what God intended for the Niger Delta people, and how the Niger Delta people have managed to be where they are today. And the lip service paid to the things of the Niger Delta people. And then how, for instance, I talked about, there is a chapter that talks about walking barefoot amidst giant oil rigs. You see, the picture of the Niger Delta is a picture of affluence. But the paradox is the fact that the people there are poor. Yeah. But what should we do? The book didn't just stop at asking questions. The book, for instance, I dedicated 2 chapters of the book to my experiences in the NDDC and the things the NDDC has done. You see, it will be surprising to people that the NDDC that is so much talked about, the NDDC is not doing anything, NDDC is not doing anything. As we speak today, the NDDC has completed over 7,000 physical projects. These are physical infrastructural projects. Over 7,000, valued at over 1.7 trillion. The NDDC also has ongoing projects of over 5,000. And the length of road, the kilometers of road the NDDC has constructed within the Niger Delta region is over 5,000. But people don't ever see these parts of NDDC. There is a story I told of a project in a place, in a book called Audu-Ohwavborua. If I ask you, do you know where Audu-Ohwavborua is? You may not know. Audu-Ohwavborua is a community in Ibuno local government area of Akwa Ibom State. there is a river they call the Audu-Ohwavborua River that separates the Eket area from these people that live across the river. And those people cannot come to Eket because there is no road. NDDC built a 600-meter concrete bridge across that river. NDDC extended electricity on towers from Eket to that community. But nobody even knows about those things. So I used the opportunity to highlight some of those things that NDDC has done. But I also talked about some of the failures of NDDC. And at the end of the day, I espoused way forward, the things government should do, the things the NDDC should do, the things the Niger Delta people should do. You know, I titled the book, Real Enemies of the Niger Delta. The bulk part of the book, hold on, just let me land this thought.
Okay.
The bulk part of the book, I extracted what the oil companies were doing, information that I got from their website, and then juxtaposed it with what they do in other climes. And you could see the double standard nature of the international oil companies. So I labeled them as enemies of the region. And then also, those of us that are from the region who collaborate with people to change the region, we're also enemies. And the enemies list goes, cascades down. Even the pastors who preach messages in the region to obtain money from people instead of telling them the word of God, they are also enemies of the region. So the list of the enemies are many. It's a book that I think not every Nigerian should read, because I actually dealt with the derivation principle, okay, in the book. And then at the end of the day, I drew a parallax between the Niger Delta region and the United Arab Emirates. What the United Arab Emirates have been able to do with the oil money they got and what we're able to do with our own oil money. And that gave rise to the resource cost that I spoke about in the book. The book is a must read, and I implore you to get the book. Real Enemies of the Niger Delta. It's on Amazon. You can Google it. It's there.
Wow. I will definitely get a copy. Okay.
Yes.
After this, what next? What other plan do you have in your life? Do you have any plan to join politics? Let me just put it straight to you.
Well, I'm political. I have interest in politics, but not for elective office. I also think that the way they play politics here in Nigeria is not the best, but that doesn't mean people should run away from it. We must close ranks and be active in politics. However, I believe that service is by volunteering. I will not fight to lead any person, but if I'm called upon, okay, I would serve. However, even people have come to me before to run for office, but I said no. It's not only through running for office that you can serve your people. Where I am, I'm serving my people. I give ideas to people, and it is working. So, but I believe also a time may come where I may have to serve in another capacity. I may not go for elective office, but I can be involved. When I retire from government work, I will be involved in politics, not at the elective level, for elective position, but within the workings. I think I want to take part in politics.
All right, that brings. I'm looking forward to that. I am looking forward to a day you will become either the Minister of Petroleum or something similar to that. With that, we've
Minister of
come to
Works.
the end of our Minister of Works.
Minister of Power.
Power, that is, any of them can go. We want to sincerely thank you for your time, and we appreciate all the things you have shared with us concerning your life, your practice, and your passion for the development of engineering in Nigeria, and also, of course, your role in the development of the agri sector, and the numerous number of lives you have touched by giving them employment. We want to appreciate what you have done and what you are still doing. We are going to be taking it to the next segment of the program, and that is the time we allow the participants to ask you questions about some of the things you have shared about your life generally. Now we have our procedure. If you have a question, you click the reaction button, raise your hand, then we will unmute you to ask your question. Can we take the questions, please? Questions, you raise your hand, then we allow you to unmute and ask your question. I've not seen any hand up. Okay, can we take questions, please? You click and also, let me also check the comment box, chat box, to see if there are questions that were dropped there. Okay. Okay, I can see Engineer Bello. Waso Abdullahi. Can you ask your question, sir? Engineer Bello.
Yes. I must confess that I really enjoyed what the host has said. And honestly, many of us have undergone the same experience he underwent in the course of his life. And what he has said is really a moral booster, that no amount of frustration or disappointment in life should deter anybody from pursuing a cause which he or she believes in. So what he said is really encouraging. And I think that there is need for engineers to develop a sense of self-pride, because that is honestly what is lacking in most of us, that because we more often than not consider ourselves as certificated laborers, that is laborers with certificate. That is why we don't even think and act like engineers in a sense. So I really wish to use this opportunity to thank Engineer Audu for a very good presentation, and hope that what he has said will encourage many of us to pursue our career in a better and more informed way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer
God
Abdullahi.
bless you, sir. Thank you for your very kind words.
Engineer Rankins.
Good evening, sir. Please confirm you can hear me clearly, sir.
We can hear you.
All right. I want to say a very big thank you to the presenter, Engineer Emmanuel, for the presentation. It was very inspiring. I was in and out at some point in time, but I think I can throw this as a question. Now, my question is, he talked about the NDDC, the vision of the NDDC, their scope, what they can do and what they cannot do. I don't know if he can throw more light on what they have done in the areas of youth empowerment, in the Niger Delta region. That is one. So I know you have an organization, you have a firm that basically would have employed a lot of engineers, but you have a platform that empowers young engineers, that's youth empowerment, more or less a mentoring platform for young engineers to encourage them with your story. So that's my question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Engineer Rahman, right? What's your name?
Rankings.
Rankings. Thank you so much. I feel so encouraged by your comment. Youth empowerment, what has NDDC done? You know, I limited, when I was talking about what NDDC has done, I stayed with the infrastructure. But the truth is, in terms of cost, what the NDDC has expended in programs is more than the one we have expended, the Commission has expended in infrastructure. Because the truth is, if you want to develop a nation, you must develop its people. Okay, the infrastructure alone doesn't cut it. So NDDC has done a lot of empowerment programs. The case in point is the foreign postgraduate scholarship. That has run for over 10 years. Every year, the NDDC, for the past 12 years, the NDDC has awarded scholarship to 200 postgraduate students in foreign universities. 200 every year for the past over 10 years. And we've monitored some of those people. Some of them are doing very well in foreign lands and also in Nigeria. And also training on skill acquisition, welding, computer skills, and so on. So many of them. You see, the problem we have with training people, when you, maybe because of, though people explain it away by saying, oh, there is hardship, but I don't buy that story. A young man is trained, and at the end of the day, he is given the basic things he needs to set up. But in your very presence, you see them selling those things. We've trained people in those days and to set up business centers. So we train them on how to do, to use computer and printers and all of that. We trained them for a period of time. And then at the end of the day, at the day they were passing out, we issued them computers, computer sets, printers and scanners and everything. In our very presence, some of them came with buyers to the program and sold them and put the money in their pocket and walked away. So NDDC is doing that. Now we are looking at what I didn't speak about while I was speaking about NDDC is that there is a new thinking in the commission. We are going, we are entering a regime of public-private partnership where we partner with the private sector to run our programs and our projects. Okay, so when we run it, we establish it, the private sector manages it. That is the era we're going into now. So we are doing that, but this time around, we try to do it with the outcome in mind, not just to train people, but we want to train them and see them become people of substance in society. So we are focusing more on entrepreneurship training. And then what about me? What have I done in my own private capacity? Because of time, I didn't go deep into so many things I'm doing. My farm is called MPEC Farms Limited. And the MPEC Farm has a foundation that we started in 2018. And as I speak to you, MPEC, the foundation has given scholarship to, in fact, the first set of 24 persons, Niger Deltans, schooling in Nigeria, full-scale scholarship that covers books, school tuition, and accommodation, and even feeding. Since 2018 to date, the MPEG Foundation is doing that. And we are now, the fact, this book that I wrote, that I published in 2020, the proceeds from the book goes into the foundation. So we're not trying to increase the beneficiaries of the scholarship from 24 to 50. But the scholarship doesn't just come automatically. You do exam. There is a body in Delta State they call UPR that organizes the scholarship, the exams. And then the recommendations are brought to me. And then professors set the exams, and then we pick those people based on the GP, the CGPA, those and all, and I can tell you about 6 of the MPEG, the scholarship beneficiaries that have graduated with first class. Okay, so that I do in my private capacity, and I continue to do it. And of course, like I said, I have people working in my farm. There was this boy, I want to tell his story with 1 minute. He used to be a troublemaker in our community, my mother's village. And then one day I got there, he has robbed some people and they were taking him to police station. And the boy is dead stubborn. So, well, he got to the police station, I went there and they locked him up for a few days. And then when they let him go, I sent for him. And I told him, look, I want to give you a job. And I gave him a job in my farm. And he was working in the crop section. So they were going to weed and do all the stuff. And then we're paying him. 6 months later, I went to see him. I asked him, how far? Do you still make all those trouble? He said, okay, by the time I close from work, I'll be too tired. I'm not if you do anything again. And today, he's married. And he's living a responsible life. So those are the things that I want to see myself do. And other people, well-meaning people, we take off people from the streets and give them sources of livelihood. Because, like we all know, these people are idle, and then their minds becomes a workshop for the devil. So thank you so much for the question. I hope that answers those questions.
Okay, I think with that, we'll be wrapping up this segment of the program. Thank you very much once again, Engineer Dr. Emmanuel Audu. I've known you for many years now, so I was not in doubt of what you will deliver when you come inside the arena. I must thank you so much for your passion and your commitment to the development of the engineering profession and to the service of our great nation. I know you still have a lot to bring on board to this country, and I pray that God will give you the grace to accomplish all that. Once again, thank you, and we pray that God will continue to bless you. Now we are coming to the segment that the participants will always love to see, and I know that they are ready, prepared to punch the keyboard to give in the answers. And we have a rule: if you send in, because from experience, we have noticed that some people, when they suspect that these are the likely questions that will come, before you could say ABC, they have started throwing in the answers. If you send in any answer before I say go, then we are not going to accept that. Once I ask the question, and the answer you are going to submit is going to be in full. It will not be abbreviated. You will send it in full. And the prizes for today are these beautiful phones I have in my hand: the Samsung, the Techno, and the Infinix high-tech phones, smart phones. And when you hear go, you will send in the correct answer. And the question goes this way: what did our guest study in his OND. Go.
One minute. Good question. I'm with you.
The answers are coming in. The answers are coming in, and we have to wait for guests.
Yes.
To confirm the correct answers. Now we are starting with Nadi, Oscar, civil engineering. Okay, so which one is the correct answer? So that we can now scroll down and
so
no.
But they have answered, right?
Yeah, what you have to tell us the correct answer, then we go through.
Okay, well, I studied OND in instrumentation and control.
Instrumentation and control. So we go down. So you go through the answer submitted and see the people that got the correct answers.
So how will I see the answer submitted?
On the chat board, when you click on chat.
Chat box, okay, yes.
Yeah, you'll be seeing, you scroll up so that you will see from the point that the answer started coming in. From my own side, I can see number one on here was, is it Julia Shuaibu? I am seeing Tio Yakubu. I am seeing one person wrote control and instrumentation. If that is okay, can I see?
No, that one is not correct.
Okay, then we have Odema Ifa Ichuku, instrumentation and control. Felix Omomwale, instrumentation and control engineering. So the first three that I have seen from my own end that got instrumentation and control, number one from this side is Julia Shuaibu. I don't know if that is what you see on your own.
I'm still trying to see it. I can see instrumentation and control, but I'm trying to see who, okay, let me click now. I want to know.
From my own end is Julia Shuaibu. And I saw Yakubu, Tio Yakubu. And I saw also the third person that got it from my own end is Odema Ihe Anichuku. Maybe you scroll up so that you see from where the question started, the answer started dropping.
Okay, but you are the one, you have given the correct answer. So
yes,
you are the one
from my own
so
end, it's not for you to confirm.
Them. Yeah?
It's not for you for you to confirm. That's what I can see from my own side. I can see Julia Shuaibu. I can see Yakubu Tio. And I can see Odema Ihanichuku. The first three. Before the
so we will take we take those three.
Okay.
And then
so
if the three got it right, then you ask a further question. So
no, what we do is this: the first three people to send in the correct answer, the first to send wins the first prize. The second to send wins the second prize. The third to send so the first person to send in was because it's the fastest finger was Julia. The second person to send in the correct answer was Yakubu Tio. And the third was Odema. So it's according to when
Okay, that's fine.
Their questions, the answers dropped. So please, can we see Julia? Julia, can we see your face?
She should raise her hand and speak so that we know who she is.
Is it Julia or Jalila? Okay, I will ask you to unmute. Where, Tio?
It's Jalila Shuaib.
Oh, Jalila. Not Julia.
Jalila.
And the other one is Odema. Okay, let me unmute the three of you. Okay. Now, Jalila, where are you?
I live in Nyanya.
Oh,
wow.
You're in Abuja.
Yes,
All right, congratulations. You have won the first prize. Tio Yakubu, where are you based?
Yes, I'm based in Abuja, but currently I'm in Edo State now.
You are in Edo State now. Wonderful.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
and
sir.
the Odema, where are you?
I'm in Gariki area 11. I think I'm second, not third though.
No, you are not
sir.
the one to tell us what you came. What we are seeing from here is what we are saying.
I'm in Gariki, Abuja, sir.
You are in Gariki, Abuja. So let me
area
also
11, Gariki.
go through again from my own end. Tio came at 1642 before you, and you came also at 1642, but after three other people. You came from my own end. So please check your network again. Thank you very much. Okay, a big congratulations to three of you. We have a rule. If you win a prize, you have 3 working days to collect your prize. So you have my number, you contact me, you come and pick. If you're not in Abuja, you send somebody that will pick it on your behalf. If you don't come after 3 days, we are going to give it to the person that came forth or the next people that got the correct answers. Because we have had cases where people will win prizes, they will abandon it.
I want
in
a
the
fund.
Yeah.
A
So please.
Okay.
So please, congratulations, and God bless you all. So you call me
That's
after
what
the
they're telling
program.
me.
Maybe you should tell them the prizes again.
Okay. The engineer,
You mute yourself.
Jalila, you won the Galaxy smartphone. Engineer, you won the smart HD phone Infinix, and then the next person, that is Odema, you won the Techno POP 7 Pro phone. So that is the 3 phones you have won. So please call me after the program. If you're in Abuja, from Monday, you start collecting your prizes. You have Monday till Wednesday next week. If you don't come, we move it to the next person. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Once again, sir, we thank you so much, and we pray that God will bless you immensely for all the good job you are doing. I still remain your host, Engineer Ben O.C. Oko, signing out. See you next time inside the arena.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for all of you that participated. Thank you for listening to me. God bless you all.